The first time I heard it, I thought it was only the wind. A faint, hollow murmur drifting down the narrow servants' hall, carrying with it a smell of something dry and old, like cedar wood left too long in the dark. The house was quiet then, as it always was after the family retired to their rooms. My candle's flame swayed in the still air, throwing shadows that bent and shrank along the plaster walls. I was halfway to the linen cupboard when I realized the sound wasn't fading with the wind. It was keeping pace with me. I stopped. The murmur stopped. Somewhere, in the stillness, something shifted, the soft scrape of cloth against wood. It came from the nursery. The nursery had been locked for years. No one had reason to enter, the last child had grown and gone before my time in the house. But the key hung in the scullery, and I dusted that brass handle often enough to know its weight. When I tried the door, it gave under my hand. The air inside was cooler, as though the fire in this part of the house had gone out decades ago. Curtains hung heavy with dust, muting the silver light of the moon. The small iron bed was still dressed in a coverlet pattern with faded roses. A row of toys sat neatly along the wall, blocks, a wooden horse, a small rocking chair that creaked faintly as the draft moved it. And on the chair sat the doll. I had seen it before, in passing, though never so close. Its face was the color of pale parchment, the paint along its cheeks flaking away like shed skin. The glass eyes were dark, too deep, reflecting the candlelight as two steel points. But what unsettled me most, what had always unsettled me, was the mouth. There wasn't one. No seam, no painted lips. Just the smooth curve of porcelain where a mouth should have been. The murmur came again. It wasn't in the room. It was from the room. From the chair. From the doll. I stood very still, candle trembling in my hand. The sound was clearer now, words, strung together in a low, breathless rush. But they weren't in any language I knew. The rocking chair creaked once, slow and deliberate, and stopped. I stepped back into the hall and closed the door without turning my back to it. I told myself I would speak of it to Mrs. Harrow in the morning. But when morning came, and the fire was lit, and the house smelled of bread and coffee, it felt foolish. I was tired. I had imagined it. 2 nights later, I heard it again. This time I stayed in my room, sitting on the edge of the bed until the sound faded. I didn't sleep, not really. I dreamed of small hands pressing against glass. Weeks passed. My chores kept me to the warmer parts of the house. I avoided the east wing where the nursery waited. But the sound began finding me elsewhere, in the laundry room as I folded sheets, in the larder while I counted tins. Always just behind me, just out of sight. One afternoon, while dusting the study, I noticed something on the writing desk, a single, yellowed scrap of paper. The handwriting was cramped and thin, curling downward as though weighed by its own ink. It speaks when it is not looked upon. I turned the page over. Empty. I put it back exactly as I found it. That night, I dreamed I was in the nursery again. The doll was gone from the rocking chair. The moonlight showed me where it stood, at the foot of the bed, hands folded neatly over its small dress. Its glass eyes caught mine. And then, without a mouth, it whispered my name. I woke to find the rocking sound again, faint but rhythmic, though my door was closed. The following morning, I went to the scullery for the nursery key. It wasn't there. Mrs. Harrow swore she hadn't moved it. I searched the drawers, the hooks, even the cupboards. It was gone. That evening, the sound returned, louder, and with it, a soft tapping, like fingers against wood. I pressed my ear to the wall. The tapping was on the other side. I left my candle burning and climbed into bed without undressing. The sound went on until I couldn't bear it and rose to find the source. My feet carried me down the east hall before I had fully decided to go. The nursery door was open. The rocking chair moved, empty. The doll stood on the floor now, turned toward the window. The moonlight made its porcelain skin almost translucent. Its head tilted slowly, as though listening to something I could not hear. I took a step forward, and the murmur stopped. The silence was deep enough to feel heavy in my ears. Then, without its head turning, I saw its glass eyes shift. They fixed on me. The whisper came, not from the air, not from the walls, but from inside my head, as though it had been waiting there all along. "You took the key." The candlelight sputtered, and in the brief darkness, something brushed past my skirt. When the light returned, the doll was sitting again in the rocking chair. Perfectly still. I backed into the hall, heart pounding, and closed the door. I have not opened it since. But sometimes, at night, I hear it still. The murmur, the slow creak of wood, the soft scrape of porcelain fade across the floorboards. And once, only once, I woke to find the key on my bedside table.